Hello and welcome to the 100th episode of Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad and I'm joined by my brother Rob.
Hey!
Hey you!
We have new music.
We do.
Written by I.
Written by you. I just heard it for the first time and it was giving me joy feelings in sort of that jumping flash kind of way. So good work on that.
Thank you very much.
So Thanksgiving happened.
Yes.
And you had an observation about Thanksgiving.
I've been listening to enough podcasts and listening to enough friends to figure this out, that 4-day weekend or what have you for Thanksgiving always turns out to be this period of time, not only when you splurge on food, but also you just binge out on video games, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's that time of year when all these awesome games are inevitably coming out, and you're just like, I have no time to play them as they're coming out, so then you're like, you know what, Thanksgiving, I'm sitting down and just no sleep, just playing them all.
Yeah.
And that's called Thanksgeekin.
Oh, I know. You told me that on the phone. You're like, we could call it that. And I'm like, oh, man, because that's always the stuff that I want to name stuff. And then you're like, shut up. It's stupid. You know?
It's stupid. It's not natural.
We'll see if this actually episode gets titled Thanksgeekin. It sounds like an 80s like sequel or something. Weekend at Bernie's 3, Thanksgeekin. But anyway, so speaking of all that, you have been binging and you got to play some Uncharted
2.
Uncharted 2, the game of the year, or is it?
Or is it? You know what? There's a lot of good stuff still coming out, so I don't know if this is going to be game of the year. But
yes,
it is really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Uncharted 2, Among Thieves, Honor Among Thieves, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And wow, it's awesome.
Okay.
Graphics are amazing.
Sweet.
It's really, I guess this is a good demonstration of the PS3's power.
Yeah.
However, I never really found myself going, oh man, Xbox could never do this. You know, it seemed a notch above Xbox 360, but not like, 9 core processors beyond Xbox 360.
Yeah, supposedly Naughty Dog figured out a way to like transfer some of the like lighting or other effects to other cores. Because there are a lot of cores inside that beast.
Yeah.
And I think by virtue of that fact, you do get a graphical bump over other systems, but it might be one that you're not going to see a lot on the PS3.
Yeah, you know what? To Naughty Dog's credit, I don't think they used it for like technical powerhouse stuff that like is in your face. It's a lot of stuff that you don't quite realize,
like texture maybe or detail.
No. I mean, for example, a lot of people have talked about the transitions in this game.
Oh, right.
One thing I will say about this game is it is ridiculously addictive because it never really stops. Like there's
no loading.
Yeah, there's not really a load. There's a big load at the beginning, but then even like when you die, it reloads the last checkpoint so quickly that you're not given a moment to really like, I might as well stop playing. Like you need to will yourself to stop playing this game.
You have to pause,
you're like, it is
basically
getting late. Yeah, exactly.
That's sweet.
And but I mean, these transitions are awesome. It'll go from just being like snow and cold colors palettes, and then it will do a crossfade between that and like a tropical island,
right?
To carry off just the way that a movie does. But the thing is, like in a movie, you're just all right, there's 2 frames and you're putting them back and forth. This is literally rendering 2 scenes simultaneously in order to crossfade between the two, both with different color palettes and different stuff going on. So
the second scene is also real time.
Yeah.
It's not like it cuts to a cinema scene.
Right, exactly. Now, it does have a few, like...
FMV.
FMV, I guess. It's hard to tell. Like, that's the awesome thing. I mean, I'm sure there are FMV pre-rendered stuff, but it's just, it's just enough that you're not really able to tell. And I'm loving it. And
sweet.
I gotta say, like, the game moves so fluidly. Combat and like the little parkour kind of freestyle running that he can do.
Yeah.
Just, amazing. The dialogue by far, though, is probably one of the major highlights of this game.
Yeah, Nolan North was the He's the voice actor who plays Drake. He's been acting in everything. He was Deadpool in the animated Wolverine versus Hulk.
Yeah,
and did a great job in that. And I loved him as the Prince in The Prince of Persia last year. I think he's awesome, and he's being overused now, maybe. But gosh, the guy is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so, like, the writing is so amazing, but on top of that, the implementation is done really well. Like you can tell there is an extra level of power being put into this thing triggering the dialogue. And so you'll have like him, like, you're like running around and you're thinking in your head, all right, what do I do? I have to figure this out. Mm-hmm. But he's literally, you hear him speaking to himself. He's like, all right, man, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
What is this?
It mimics
and then
the player.
You'll like pick up on it and be like, this will come in handy. Like, it's stuff that you're thinking in your head, but he's literally mumbling it to himself.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And sometimes it gives you little clues. He's like, I gotta find something to jump on right here. Like, I don't know. Like, it's very subtle.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is surprising because we're so used to like the video gamey dialogue. Yeah. To actually have dialogue that might mimic close to reality, that's cool. That's really cool. So you're thankful for Uncharted 2, it sounds like.
I am thankful for Uncharted 2, and I was thankful to play it.
I'm going to segue off of your comment about the animation.
Oh, yeah?
Because I can definitely compliment the animation in Batman Arkham Asylum, which I finally got to play.
Yes.
I also used the break to geek out a little bit on gaming, among other things, which we'll get to. But yeah, it's great. It's great. Everybody already said this, but I finally, it took me so long to get to play this, and I finally did. Blockbuster sent me like a $4.99 rental coupon, and I was like, normally it's like $9.50 there, which is kind of a crime, but I'm like, I'm using that. I went down there looking for Assassin's Creed 2, and actually I was like, oh, they didn't have that, so I went with Batman. Glad I did. Animation in the game is excellent. The way his cape moves, and I mean, this is a small detail first, to start with, but the way he moves is really fluid and awesome. And normally when you see that, it could be kind of like an but am I going to get to actually control that, or is it just going to like kick in an animation and I wait for it to stop?
Yeah.
No, you are moving around freely, and you look like Batman. It's when the first Batman Begins movie came out, somebody commented that it was a horror film for criminals. Mm-hmm. And that's what this is like, because you go into a room, there's 8 dudes in there, and you can switch to your detective mode and see all their skeletons, and it's like, and this was a little bit in the demo too, but it's even more in this. There's like, you have to strategically take these 8 guys out, and you do it silently, kind of, and you'll suck up a dude into your cape, and the other ones will be like, well, where's Harry? And they're like, the bat got him. What do you mean the bat got him? There's no such thing as a bat. It's the same thing that happened right at the beginning of the Michael Keaton movie. It's like the Batman is a legend. He's kind of like a monster, and people are like not sure if he exists, and he just starts taking dudes out, and you hear gunshots, like people are like, where is he? And you feel like the monster, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're crouching on top of a gargoyle or something, just brooding, and it looks amazing.
That's awesome. I gotta wonder if that game was made, like, it's clear that it was made by fans of Batman, in the same way that kind of the animated series was made by fans of Batman.
Right, and this is written by Paul Dini, one of the best titles to come up at the beginning when you're wheeling Joker into Arkham Asylum. Written by Paul Dini, and of course you have Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, so you have a very animated series feel, but it's also more dark and sort of mature in its like look and the graphical style of it. Harley Quinn is much more risque, and I gotta say, Scarecrow is the new Psycho Mantis.
That I saw your tweet about that, and I'm not even sure what you mean by that. I've heard like conflicting things about the Scarecrow levels.
But, the Scarecrow levels were definitely my favorite, and a lot of people said that. I agree, because it actually, I'm not going to spoil too much, but it messes with the game at those points.
Good.
Like the game becomes a 2D side scroller during the Scarecrow bits, and there's also stuff. Yeah, there's also stuff that you do. It's all like taking place in Batman's mind, and he's like freaking out. So a lot of stuff happens that is like glitches or things that Psycho Mantis would have done. Like, we all remember the famous, put the controller on the floor, or how he scans your memory card.
I will move your controller with my own mind. And you're like, I know where this is going, but it's awesome. And my favorite, when he scans the memory card, and he's like, if you have other Konami games on there, he was like,
the Psycho Mantis was like, I see that you are a poor warrior and a bad person.
Yeah, I see that you like Castlevania. Yeah. And you play it too much.
You've played Jumping Flash and you wear a dress. All that stuff. Scarecrow, there was one part where he glitches out the screen and it looks like I literally thought my 360 froze.
Really?
In fact, it may have froze. but I mean, the thing that makes me think it's part of the game is it immediately then goes into this like you lose. I don't want to give away too much, but really cool and a well thought out game, absolutely worth playing.
I'll have to give it a look because I know that the same roommate who got Uncharted 2 got that along with his PlayStation 3.
Yeah, it's something everybody's playing and everybody definitely should be.
I think that's a good opportunity for video game developers. Really, when you have an established IP, like I think the lame thing is that they always kind of just skin it over an established game style.
Right.
And I'm thinking, what you should do is, if people are going to buy it anyway because of what it is, like what it's called, take that opportunity to like get experimental with your gameplay.
Yeah.
Like how weird can you make this and still like justify it because of the genre that it is?
That generally is how it has to happen. Like something like Infinity Ward, it's another war shooter to Activision. Like they could care less about like the trying to push the limits and all that stuff. In fact, I don't know if you heard this, but like Infinity Ward had to actually fight to get it turned into Modern Warfare. Like it's such a machine, the whole like World War II thing, that they actually thought that was risky, like the Modern Warfare thing. Activision did.
Yeah. And very risky now that Bobby Kotick has cashed in all of his like chips when Modern Warfare 2 was released. He's like, now would be a great time for me to make more money off of the money that I'm making.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing. They work in innovation, but they do it in an existing, sure hit. And I think that I think you have a good point there. Use your
yeah, absolutely. I think
absolutely. I have a good point.
I always do. And good segue if you're done.
yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Another game that I was geeking out on Thanksgiving was Modern Warfare 2. I know that we gave our impressions of it last episode, but I focused mainly on the multiplayer this time.
Yeah.
And I do want to say this multiplayer is addicting. I almost am sad for you because you rented it.
I know.
And you avoid multiplayer, and I can't play multiplayer with you, and I want to. Like I want to like jump on there and do stuff. No, it is bizarre. I'm like, am I actually good at this? Because
see, that's my fear. That's my fear is that I'm just gonna get stomped.
Yeah, but I think for whatever reason, the quick match is putting me in with people who actually are kind of at my skill level, and
sweet.
I come in last most of the time, but I'm not pathetic.
That's good.
At least I think the game does a good job of really not making you feel pathetic, because it'll give you a reward for anything. It's like, you traveled the most distance of anybody. It's like, or you didn't die once because you were crouched in a corner the whole time crying.
Now, are you talking about open kind of deathmatchy modes, or are you talking about the special ops stuff?
I'm talking about deathmatchy. I'm talking about multiplayer, like the real deal thing that we hate.
Yeah, you versus 1,000 dudes. It's like, it takes me back to like high school gym class. Like it's anti my nature to just be competitive. I'm more used to the solitary experience, and it's like, all right, now I have the thing that I love gaming that was solitary now merged with this competitive stuff that I hated in school. What do I do? I will say I own Modern Warfare, and I've jumped into that multiplayer, and it's freaking smooth, beautiful, well executed multiplayer. And I think of every game that I've tried multiplayer, that's been the most fun. So I'm sure it would be. I did get a call from my other friend who was like, hey, do you still have the game? I listened to your review, and I'm like, crap. So I do have to re-rent it or something.
Right. I mean, I've it's actually gotten to the point where I've come home and like wanted to play the multiplayer. I wanted to jump in.
Yeah.
Because even though you may lose a lot of matches, you still feel like you're progressing, You're unlocking new gameplay modes, you're unlocking new weapons, you're unlocking, new artwork or like things to decorate your guy with.
Right.
And it's really it brings kind of a single player gameplay style to the multiplayer thing. And I know this was introduced in Modern Warfare 1, but I obviously didn't play that.
Right.
But
sweet.
Man, is it sweet. And I'm really liking it. I'm glad I got to try that out over Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so this is 3 at least big contenders for Game of the Year, it sounds like. And I know I'm trying to kind of formulate my list and put things into their place. You got amazing stuff like Shadow Complex was amazing. I'm trying to think, where does everything fit? It's going to be interesting.
Right.
It's going to be
I've heard amazing things about Assassin's Creed 2.
Yeah. It's, people are saying that's better than the first one. So, okay, Black Friday. Let's switch gears a little bit here to the technology side.
Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Yeah. Well, did anybody do Cyber Monday? Really?
People did.
Okay.
Because there were deals put up. Like, it's a merchandise holiday where, merchants can say, well, you know what? A lot of people are just going to check even out of just like, is anybody really doing Cyber Monday? And then they'll go on Amazon. They'll be like, holy crap, and
yeah, and I want to say, like, I'm the guy that's a proponent of online shopping. Like, this is the first year that I actually went out on Black Friday. And it was only because I wanted to try to get a deal on my new phone, on my Droid. But yeah, otherwise I would not have gone out there. I think that's generally insanity, especially if there are really good deals online. But like, having gone out and been in the masses, by the way, giant line at the McDonald's at the mall, like 40 people deep. What?
Wow.
Like, McDonald's is not new. It's weird. Anyway,
are there specials?
yeah, exactly. Well, they're all there like 5 a.m. shopping, and then they get hungry. And I guess I was just like, I'm not standing in that line. Anyway, Cyber Monday, I've always thought, well, that would be a better deal. But having gone out there, it's like, that's where the focus still seems to be. It's like, go to the stores.
Yeah, it was funny. Like, the term Cyber Monday was coined like in like the late 80s, early 90s, whenever like people would come back from home to their computers at work, which had better internet connections at the time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They would use those computers to shop online.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that whole idea comes from. But it's so antiquated because like you obviously have a better internet connection now at home than you do at work.
Yeah, I was actually in college, like at CCAC, taking courses and downloading the episode 1 trailer onto a zip disk using their like high-speed internet, and then coming home to my modem connection. Remember, we all had zip drives?
Oh, yeah.
That was how we did things back then. That's how we roll.
Those were good days.
But so, the Droid.
You got one. That's right.
I totally did. Yeah, I joined the smartphone thing 5 years later.
I got my first text from you.
You did. I feel so old. But yeah, so I've been researching the crap out of this thing. I think I've talked about it last week. But 5 a.m. rolls around on Black Friday, and I had my old phone alarm set. I felt like a little kid. I gotta say, like, I still feel like a little kid on Christmas when it comes to that big purchase or that box that shows up at your door. Like, my 360 got fixed, a couple weeks back, and when it showed up at my door, I was like, resist the urge to freak out like a little kid. But yeah, I got out in the car, drove down to the Verizon store, and sat in front of it. Nothing is happening inside the store. Our local store, it turns out, didn't open early for Black Friday, so then I'm shooting down to the mall, jumping in and getting in the line. Do you want to speak to somebody? Absolutely. All right. And the guy's like, do you want to get it? And I'm like, yep. Already did all the research. Told him all the, I want this, 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 and this. He was like, well, those are the questions I was going to ask. So it was like the easiest sale ever. Walked out of there with my Droid. I do want to say, I'm going to knock it first. So here's the downsides.
Okay.
From my perspective, this thing is a tank. It in no way conforms to your hand or face. It is a brick made of metal. The Droid is not comfortable. The Palm Pre is a pebble, a smooth Zen-like pebble that you slide into your pocket, rub up against your face, and it comforts you. And so is the Droid Aris, which is like the Droid's little brother. And for $100, that phone is actually not bad at all.
Yeah.
It's rubberized. It has a curvy. No, Droid is a brick. You pull it out, it does everything, but it just, anyway. So that's that. Also, it's no iPhone. I mean, let's not kid ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the smoothness of the iPhone's interface, whatever graphics hardware it's based on, whatever OS, Mac OS it's based on, creates a smooth, pinching and pulling on the iPhone is like no phone that I've seen, not the Palm, not the Droid, competes with that. Like, when you're scrolling, it's still a little laggy. It's still a little, okay, not 60 frames a second, if I could put it that way.
Right.
Frame rate. So yeah, this is not an iPhone. However, one more bad thing. No easy way to kill an app. And you really shouldn't have to worry about this that much because it's Linux-based and things run in the background. You can multitask. But the Palm has a beautiful interface for just getting rid of cards. You can see everything that's open.
Right.
With this, you open apps, you switch to other apps, and you're not really aware of how many are still open.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to an app, and it instantly is where you left off, and you're like, okay, that must have been running. That kind of thing can make a hardcore user nervous because they're like, is it zapping my battery? Is it using my stuff?
Yeah.
There are pretty good indicators on the top to let you know what's still, if GPS is running and all that stuff. But yeah, so it's not quite as smooth with multitasking as the Palm. But this sucker is beautiful looking. The screen is technically high definition. I talked about it last week. Text is tiny on this sucker, and you can still see it. And because of that, there's things like, a giant list of names that like you can read the entire list in a very small space. Also very fast. That processor definitely does its job. I get a lot done in a short amount of time. That is nice, very snappy. But the big two pluses, being with Google and being with Verizon. Having used it for a week now, the Google thing actually just really makes me feel good because I have all my stuff already stored on Google.
Yeah.
When I was in the store, the guy's like, "All right, write down your Google account on this notepad and hand it to me." And I'm like, "All right." And then he he put it like on his desk where like it could be clearly seen by other customers. I'm like, "That's my password for like life,"
Right.
Anyway, he puts it in and he's like, now for a $5 fee or whatever the fee is, we can transfer your contacts from your old phone to your new phone. I'm like, well, I have all my contacts on Google, so they should pull down automatically. He's like, really? I didn't think about that. He puts it in and boom, all my contacts, you, all my other friends pull immediately. And not only do you come in, but your Facebook picture is used as your face because it syncs with Facebook. It has that whole, the same thing that Palm Pre does, it syncs. So I was like,
what do you think of that Facebook picture, by the way?
Yeah, the German short-haired pointer. Yeah,
yep.
I enjoy that. It's a nice pun. But anyway, so that all just came down from the cloud. My calendar, my contacts, my Gmail, all that stuff. I spent very little time getting up and running because of that. Being with Google is great. It's an open platform. The App Store is actually very full. It's got about 10,000. A lot of them are crappy, but that's what happens with an open platform. A lot of them are also awesome. Some favorites, Shop Savvy, which is the barcode scanner. Totally used that on Black Friday. When I went around the rest of the day with Amber, she saw like a massage chair. I'm like, let me see if there's a better price online. Boop, scan the barcode, instantly searches the internet. Awesome app. People in the store giving me weird looks, but that's okay. And the Google Sky Map. If you just want to show off, Google Sky Map shows you a real-time picture of the stars superimposed over, like when you're moving the phone, it's actually like in real time updating like which stars you're in front of.
Wow.
I pointed it at I gave it to Amber. I'm like, just move this around. These are the stars that are around you. She points it at me. Uranus. Totally. Uranus was totally like right behind me.
Oh, the things that Droid reveals.
Exactly. I was like, that's hilarious. Pointed it at the ground and realized there are stars below me. Like, that's a thought that I just hadn't had before. I'm like, that is cool. The sun, it was nighttime at the time. I was like, the sun is below me. That's cool. So yeah, it's open. It's not closed off like Apple where they're gonna reject apps. That's cool. There's already porn apps. I mean, just to go to show you like how open it is.
All right.
Oh yeah. All right.
I heard that was kind of blocked off though. Like that because CNET was just reporting on like, oh, the very first not safe for work thing. You have to like download a special app store for that.
It's a separate app store. But it's the kind of thing that shows you could only do that on an open platform. Apple would never allow that.
You know what? I was listening to listening to Leo Laporte on This Week in Tech, which is a good show for older people. But he was talking about the Droid, and he's a huge advocate for it. And one thing a good point he made about that store, and it was about it being open. And he said, like, let's say you were a big developer and you're pouring a lot of money into making a AAA piece of software, like really good. It's like, would you rather develop it for iPhone, where you will put it up to Apple for them to decide whether or not this thing you've spent all this money on is going to even be available? Or are you going to put it on Android, where not only is it open for you to just put it on there when it's ready, but it's open for you to continue updating that after the fact to improve it and stuff. Just, every time you start up, update available. There you go. And I think that was very poignant. It's like, you know what? Maybe open is the way to go, and maybe that can bring down the iPhone juggernaut.
And I've, when people talk about open source in the past, I've always thought of like Linux geeks,
some sort of DOS shell that you have to like interface with.
Yeah, but now I kind of get it because of that, as an advantage. Also, you know this from being a Palm Pre-owner, Amazon Music Store is your store of choice.
Yeah.
Not a closed platform. Gives you an MP3.
Yep.
Whereas if you are joined with iTunes, at least in the past, you downloaded these AAC formatted MP4, M4P files, and it was like, well, what do these work on? Well, the iPod. All of those tracks, I have $75 worth of music that I bought on iTunes that I don't access anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's just not going to work on my player. And Amazon Store feels like this is the way it should be going. An open system where I can take these tracks. Even if I toss my Droid in the garbage, I could still use all the tracks I bought on that store. So I love that. And like I said, being with Verizon, so far the network's super strong. I've never had an outage. Jason was saying when he drives around with Pandora on his iPhone, he gets these outages. Or I'm sorry, Rhapsody. We never talked about my impressions of the Rhapsody app.
Yeah.
But it's a really great app. It's just that on AT&T's network, you're driving around with it, you're going to get spotty coverage, 3G coverage, excuse me.
Well, yeah, spotty 3G coverage. I think that's the thing that AT&T is contesting in court right now.
Oh, God, yeah. They're firing back so hard. And all Verizon said is, look, we're being accurate. Like, this is your 3G map. And they didn't deny that.
Right, but they weren't like, but also your Edge map and your 4G that you're implementing. And,
And Verizon's not obligated to put that crap up there.
They're not.
No,
obviously
they told
not.
The truth. They said 3G.
It's advertising.
Yeah, exactly. So, fast connections almost all over the United States.
Sweet.
That's really cool. I'm going to put it through its paces soon. Rhapsody is coming to Android by the end of the year, according to Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. And, I'm driving around with Pandora. No outages. Very nice.
You know what? The thing is, though, that I'm on Sprint and I don't get any outages with Pandora. Like, rarely. I have to be, in a concrete corner to... As long as there's Sky, I have Pandora.
Yeah, and you know what? Sprint, second most powerful in terms of 3G coverage.
Sprint actually has all three major smartphones except for the iPhone. It has Android, it has Pre, and it has BlackBerry. So, we're the only network where you can get all three of these options.
Yeah, and somebody was saying, they've never had an Android phone, on the other networks where they've had, that much of a problem like they have on the iPhone, where you'll see bars on your screen, but they won't be data. You don't have access to data at the moment.
Well, that's sweet, man. And I definitely am noticing that a lot of iPhone developers or a lot of websites that I frequent are developing Android apps, or there's an ad. There'll be an ad place for an Android developer because they want to move over to Android.
Yeah.
It's definitely garnering more interest, in my opinion, publicly than the Pre was, which kind of has me a little bummed. The Pre is still releasing a steady stream of apps. Their app store is still in beta, which is still keeping people away.
Yeah.
But it really looks like the Droid is doing a good show, despite it coming from the Terminator Blade Runner future and not the Star Trek
I know
future.
That's what it feels like. It even starts up with a
from.
messed up droid, and then it has the red eye appear. It's this is more Skynet than it is. Palm is like I said, a Zen garden,
right?
You just there's pebbles on the screen and a fish, like a Japanese fish
tossing a pebble.
And I think Palm is a better looking operating system. I being a graphics guy myself, I'm very attracted to the way Palm looks as an operating system. I think their key is that they need to join more networks, which they are supposedly next year going to be on Verizon, according to a Verizon Twitter, which is really weird. But yeah, I think they need more networks, and they also need more phones with that OS. Because imagine a freaking fast phone running that OS smoothly.
Yeah.
I think that would be awesome. So that's my Droid experience. Real quickly, I had a Verizon related story. My friend Dan apparently uncovered a Verizon flaw that was nationwide. So if you're out there on Verizon and you aren't getting screwed for text message charges, you might be able to thank my friend Dan. He was telling me that he was downloading spreadsheets of all of his text messages that he was using, and he was noticing that they were charging him for texting his wife, and they're both in the same network. So he called them, and he like kind of went upward and upward and upward in like the tech tiers. Finally got to a guy that's like, you discovered a nationwide issue.
Wow.
And he's like, all right. And the guy goes, let's just say that a lot of people were affected. It sounds like
let's
Skynet
just say,
itself. Yeah.
It became self-aware, and we had to shoot it with a shotgun.
Right. So at this point, he said everyone always asks him in that story, like, so what do you get? Like free Verizon service? He got like a $30 gift card, or like a $30 like credit on his bill.
If Verizon weren't so smarmy, I'd be fine with them. But they really just, they would you like to pay $5 for us to do an easy thing, move things onto your phone? No.
Oh, no doubt. There's definitely a smarminess.
Would you like to pay $1 a month for your GPS to use Google Maps, even though that should be free because it's free to run?
Was that what's happening?
No.
I didn't know that.
That's on their old phones. They have VZ Navigator.
Oh God, no.
Which is like my Palm has Sprint Navigator, which is free.
Yeah.
And it comes free because it's a GPS service, which is, why pay extra? Anyway.
Well, I will say real quick. Yeah, I keep adding real quick addendums. I apologize, but Google Maps navigation. Forget other navigation. It's in beta.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's in beta. It does sound awesome. The woman's voice sounds totally awesome. No.
Can you make her British?
No, but it does.
Not sold.
All right. Anyway, so moving on. I'm thankful for all that droid-related business. That happened to me. What do you get?
Things are all kind of going up in the cloud.
Yes.
Sounds like, which is good. And I did want to kind of mention, like, your reliance on Google kind of reminds me of two things. Real quick, I want to throw a bone to Valve and their awesome Steam service. I use a Mac. Sorry.
You should be.
But I do have a PC, and I booted it up because I wanted to try out Torchlight.
Right.
And to do that, I decided to get Steam. And I haven't used Steam in forever, like maybe 4 years, since Half-Life 2 came out. And so I logged it on, and it was like, would you like to create an account? And at first I'm like, I'm going to create an account, and I put in my usual name, and it's like, somebody already has that. And I'm like, oh, I must still have an account on here.
Right.
So I go, and I log in, and next thing I know, this big list comes up of, Half-Life, Half-Life 2, Counter-Strike, Counter-Strike Source, like all these things, and I'm like, they're all my old games.
Yeah.
Hey, and it's like, would you like to install these and play them because you bought them a long time ago and we're not trying to get your money?
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you're awesome, and that's the way it really should be. Like,
yeah. Well, this is the question that's always asked with DLC, like, well, if I buy an Xbox game through the hardware, what happens if my hardware crashes? Like, will I still have that game in 2012 when the Space Apes attack or whatever? Will I still have that?
And that's the way it so should be. I'm almost mad at physical media because I'm like, this could get scratched and then I'll lose it and I'll have to buy it again.
Yeah.
It's like if only they would sell it online. Why isn't the Phantom a real?
Well, dude, I told you, like, I was looking over my DVD collection recently. I couldn't buy a DVD for $1 at Blockbuster. It was closing. The Blockbuster was closing. They were selling a DVD for $1 that I liked. I couldn't buy it, because I was like, this might be on Instant Stream.
Yeah.
And I don't want to buy this disc, and then, if I can't boot it up automatically.
Right.
Like, that's what's happening.
They need to find a way to, like, include now with every game a code that just proves that you bought it, and that it's not a used game, or it's not, and this could really garner, new sales and go leverage against GameStop and the used game market that is screwing developers. So I'm looking at this, I'm like, this is the way to do it.
It absolutely is.
You buy it and you own it forever.
Yeah.
On the internet, and they Valve has given conferences about this, but they're like, you need to think of yourself as a service to your customers, not as this master to suck things from them.
Right.
It's like to trick money out of them. It's like Valve has such a servant attitude of like, you've bought our game, now we're just going to give you stuff, you know.
I mean, the question does arise, like, what happens if Valve ever goes under? You know, or
I don't think they. Well, yeah, I mean.
Well, yeah, exactly. I don't think that they will. But what happens? There have been companies that have closed that have had people's stuff, and they generally transfer it to another company.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's I think the only weird thing is when you have it in someone else's hands, what happens to that company? You know?
Right.
But gosh, they are leading the way with how to do it right.
Definitely. So that is Steam, and that is cloud computing, which brings me on to another thing that happened while we were away that I kind of feel we owe it to our listeners to talk a little bit about, and that's Chrome OS being revealed.
Yeah, you're a Chrome OS.
Yeah, you're a Chrome OS.
Yeah, it was revealed to like the most pitiful, like crying trumpet fanfare ever. Like if you can imagine, just nobody is liking this. And that's funny because we had an entire episode about Chrome OS. I mean, Google making an operating system sounds awesome. Then you look at it. I don't know if you heard the Dignation this past week where Kevin just starts the show with Chrome OS. It looks like a browser. Well, it is a browser.
Yeah.
I mean, honest to God, that's my first reaction. Like, it's just Chrome.
Right.
That's all it looks like anyway.
It's Chrome without... It's free-running Chrome with nothing underneath it.
And, like, instant terror struck my heart of, like, oh, God, I already have this. Like, why do I need a Google operating system that's just going to be a browser?
It really feels like Google isn't risky enough. You know, like, they've gotten to a size now where they're thinking like engineers. They're, testing out color schemes and not really focusing on, like, being imaginative and being like, well, what if your operating system was all online, and then like going nuts. Like that's what our whole episode was about, was just like, dude, everything's going to be online, so yeah.
But like the dark secret is that it kind of already is, and you can access that stuff from Safari or Firefox or Google. Like you can access Docs and all of their apps, and like Microsoft's doing an online version of Office that won't be tied to a browser. Like, what is going to be the advantage of running the Google OS? Like, they're like, well, you'll use our web-based applications. I already do. And I can use them on a Mac or on a PC or on whatever. What's the advantage of running your OS? I guess that's what we have to be sold on,
Right. And I guess the answer would be, well, it's a $25 computer, or something like that.
Now, that is awesome, actually.
Yeah.
I remember when Walmart was selling like Winblows or whatever it was called, like the Linux Windows knockoff on like cheap PCs.
Yeah, so that could work. You know what though? Like it really also depends on HTML5, like what that's gonna be all about. And who knows? Maybe it will break some barriers. But for now, you wanted some new aesthetic. You wanted a new way to look at the internet. You wanted the internet 3.0, And instead,
they're not going to give you the next advancement in user interface.
Right.
And they're not trying to.
It's just a browser,
It's tabbed browsing, although I did realize, tabs, as far as humans have developed computers, tabs are basically the best idea, I think, for navigating between things. Like we have tabs in Windows, we have tabs in the browser, we have tabs in software if you use like different pieces of software now. Even Photoshop, like CS4, switching between your photos or your pictures inside of Photoshop, it's all tab based. It makes sense to build an operating system on that. I have these amount of tabs running.
Here's what we need is we need Chrome OS to announce that they've officially bought OnLive. And that's just going to come free with
and that's just the video game icon.
Right, exactly.
We've included all games.
All games.
Oh, God.
All books we've made and all music and everything is free now to humanity. And then they like float off into a literal cloud, which has wires dangling from it, distributing data to people.
Yeah. Totally to switch gears from that, things we're thankful for. I am thankful that Fantastic Mr. Fox was awesome.
Yeah.
The
movie you
saw that movie.
You know what? I saw the trailer and I thought it looked like crap. Like I got to be honest, I saw it and I was just like, like this looks like it's artistic, but in a bad way, where it's like this is just lame. But apparently
I can
not.
understand. No, I can understand your thought because it is the old style of claymation.
Yeah.
Of like, I shouldn't even call it claymation. It's stop motion animation, but it's the old style. It's the style that we saw when we were kids. Where like Mr. Badger is crappy, like kind of in his movements. But dude, that is totally part of its charm. I'm here to tell you, Fantastic Mr. Fox is the next Wes Anderson movie. Like literally and also figuratively. Like this is Wes Anderson's new movie. It's not his side project for kids.
Huh.
It's not his Last Airbender. It's fully a Wes Anderson film. Slam. No, I'm looking forward to that. But I mean, that's a side project for M. Night. It's not his typical thing. This, from the get-go, Fantastic Mr. Fox starts, and you see like a claymation hand hold up the title like on the front of a book, and it says like by Roald Dahl, which is the book, and the music kicks in, and this is Wes Anderson's movie. Like the dialogue and the jokes and the music and all that is totally his style. If you put this in a live action, it would be unmistakably his next film. I love that, and I would say like, who would have thought that Coraline would have let me down? We never talked about that, but the movie of Coraline actually let me down quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And that was the director of Nightmare Before Christmas mixed with this amazing child's book that I loved. Seems like a match made in heaven, but it actually let me down. This thing, which I had doubts about, ended up being such a joy to watch. It's just carefully crafted. The frames, the scenes, the music, the clothing that the characters are wearing, and really more adult than you would think. It actually begins with some text on the screen, which goes by way too fast for kids to read, and I was like, interesting choice, In fact, there was even like a dad in the audience that was like, I couldn't catch that. I'm like,
Daddy, what does that say?
You're shamed in front of your children? I couldn't read it.
I don't know how to read.
Sorry, adult illiteracy is not a joke. I apologize. But yeah, I mean, there is an adult kind of sense running throughout the film. I mean, he's struggling. Mr. Fox is struggling with the issue of not wanting to live in a hole anymore, wanting to live above ground and things like that adults will relate to. And it's also fairly hilarious. Like, Wes Anderson's humor, like as said through Jason Schwartzman's, voice, George Clooney, all these other people, it's delivered like very dry and very funny. Only issue I have is toward the end there was some in the back half of the movie there's some darker moments in tone that I don't think mixed very well with the other. It's the same thing that happened with Up, where it like Up began with such like a dark like adult tone and it kind of got lighthearted. It's like singing birds at the end,
Yeah.
But it begins with, spouse death.
It was the original title of the
spouse death by Pixar.
How about we call it Up?
Yeah, much better. Yeah, no, toward the end there was some stuff that I was like, man, not only are kids going to struggle with that, but I actually was like, oh, that's a bummer.
Right.
My recommendation is that you see this movie. If you enjoy Wes Anderson, I'm sure you're probably already seeing it, but if you're on the fence and you like his other live action movies, this is his next movie. Go see it. It's really good. Really good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing is I am on the fence about Wes Anderson. I guess because I like his movies, but then I never find myself kind of rewatching them.
Okay.
Because they're so like emotionally draining.
Yeah, that
like,
does happen.
I'm always like, oh man, what an impact that had on me. I don't want to go through that ever again.
This won't do anything on that level. It won't be the Darjeeling Limited kind of stuff. Or
Great
even
movie.
like yeah, and you know what? I haven't enjoyed his last couple films as much as Tenenbaums and some of the early stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is a win for me.
Sweet. Well, I'm gonna pause a moment here for sponsors. I'd like to thank Hair Mayonnaise, dancing its way onto the heads and into the hearts of people across America. Find it at your local stores.
I almost don't want to acknowledge anything that was just said. This came out of nowhere. This is not discussed ahead of time.
Right.
But wow, Hair Mayonnaise. Okay, you know what? Let's roll with it.
All right.
Sure. So
I'll post it on Twitter.
Yeah, so we got an email this week that I wanted to just go over real quick. It's from Mike. Holy crap, an email. Yeah, by the way, if you listen to this show and you have access to email, you might send us an email. And you also might follow us on Twitter. Rob currently has more followers than I do by quite a few.
Now, you know what, man? They're all like porn bots and things like that, which makes me sad because I'm thinking, after mankind has withered away, the last remnants of our society, which the aliens will discover, are porn bots tweeting at each other.
Yes. You know what? Oh, it's one of the first tweets I got when I got my droid was this explicit photo with like this line next to it which could not have been written by a human. It's like a series of supposedly like scintillating words jammed together, and it was just like, like Hank Hill style. Oh God, you're right.
You gotta think of like Alien, like the reverse, but like we received a signal, sir.
If you're listening to this podcast and you are not a porn bot, check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/GUGBrad, or alternatively GUGRob. That will keep you posted on geeky stuff throughout the week when the show is not available. And yeah, so we got an email from Mike, and it's about this news story where this guy named Sal9000 married a video game girlfriend. Have you heard this?
No, I have not. Continue the story.
He's a Japanese kid, it looks like, who basically married his video game girlfriend, which is a character in a DS game, and there was a ceremony. The girl, quote unquote, gave a speech. There were images shown during the ceremony of their time spent together. It's like a dating simulator game of some sort. Sketchy on the details, but the guy is pictured holding his red DS next to his face and smiling. And I always wondered, like, in the early days of the internet, like, I would joke with people, "Oh, I have an internet life. Yeah, I have an internet wife." But this is real. Yeah. This man has now a video game wife, supposedly. Have you ever felt connected to a video game character? I guess that's the segue from here. Not that you would ever do this.
So wait, this wasn't like an online wedding with like MMO avatars.
No, this is a man marrying his Game Boy.
This is a man marrying his Game Boy. This is a man marrying a line of code that probably another man wrote.
Yeah, and that is a whole other level we could explore. But yeah, I figured we could open this up. We always talk about nostalgia and growing up geek. And, what is the most connected you've ever felt to a video game character? What comes to mind in terms of, like, emotional resonance, a character that really, you said Wes Anderson movies have affected you.
Right.
Short of, like, Uncharted 2 being, like, let's say the peak of that lately. In the past.
I'm going to start off by saying the Elite Beat Agents.
Interesting choice.
I know.
Go on.
It is also a DS game.
Yeah.
And it came out a while ago, but when I first got my DS, this was one of the first games I got for it because it was very well received. Mm-hmm. It's essentially a rhythm game where you have to tap certain points on the screen with the beat. And they get more and more complex patterns as the thing goes on. But the big difference between this game and Rock Band and Guitar Hero and all those other things is that it is a character-driven story. Mm-hmm. All right, the Elite Beat Agents are essentially male cheerleaders.
Yeah,
who are sent to help out individuals who are having a crisis of some kind.
Yeah,
and it starts off with things that are small. Where and you get used to this idea where it's like, well, there's a director who has to make a movie, and he's really lousy at it, so he cries out help, and then the Elite Beat Agents come to his aid and cheer him on as he directs a movie.
And this is all using pop music.
Right, and yeah, it'll play like some sort of, like Madonna song or,
right.
or whatever. And the situations kind of get a little more and more, goofy or crazy. Mm-hmm. But there's a break in the middle that kind of makes you realize that it does go a little deeper than that. When there's a story involving a girl whose father dies just before Christmas.
Jeez.
And exactly, and the Elite Beat Agents are sent in, but they do Inspiration by Kansas.
Oh, wow.
Or I think.
Is it by Kansas? We'll say it is.
Chicago.
Is it that?
Whatever. One of those
Karate
cities.
Kid song.
Yeah, but and that was I just played it and I was like, wow, this is really like mature. What's going on? And then the ultimate is the ending the final stages, all of a sudden, all heck breaks loose. Right. Everybody needs help. The Elite Beat agents are essentially like defeated, like in Batman, who's like strapped to a thing, and slowly, like, everybody who you've helped along the way are all gathered around looking at like the frozen or like, you know, whatever, like the Elite Beat agents kind of like stuck.
Yeah.
And they all start chanting like, you know, agents are go, yeah. Agents are, and like everybody just starts chanting. And that's then awesome. Jumping Jack Flash by the Rolling Stones starts blaring out, awesome. And the Elite BJs like burst out, and I just got goosebumps. I was like, "Oh man, yeah. Like this is awesome! Like everybody loves me," and you start kicking butt, you know. And it was this. I think the thing was it came from such an unexpected place, right. You know, right. Where I was just playing this rhythm game because I liked pop tunes, but next thing I know, I was really getting into this storyline, right. And really moved by these characters who were, you know, I was supporting them, and now they were supporting me, mm-hmm. And it was just like, this is amazing. So that's my example of a video game character I would marry.
Yeah, all three Elite Beat agent guys.
This is tying it back. Yeah, no, not in the least.
Yeah, interesting. Well, he must have had some kind of experience.
I would have a beer with them.
Like that. I don't think I've had something. Maybe I have, and it's just hard for me to think of on that level. I think the early RPGs we played on the PlayStation, like Wild Arms and Final Fantasy VII, definitely affected me in ways that I don't think I had been before. Probably during Myst. The stuff with the fathers and the sons, I literally felt like I was stepping into that world, and like outside of the game I would feel like, you know, I do need to talk to Atris about this particular thing. You know, there's still a barrier in my mind separating the fantasy and the reality. Unfortunately, this man's barrier got smashed, possibly by an Elite Beat agent. I don't know, but yeah, it's scary, but you know, it emotions can be triggered by games, you know, obviously. It does work. Yeah. It does work. It's funny, whenever you were saying that Batman was strapped to a thing, I had a flash of this, one of the funniest internet like photoshops I've seen in a while. I was just searching for Batman for like Arkham Asylum walkthroughs or something, and this, I love when you Google search and you see an image that you have no idea why you're seeing it, and it's totally out of context, and it's just hilarious. And it was, someone had photoshopped an old like comic book frame of Batman and Robin, where Robin is like tied to a log, and like this saw blade on the edge of a truck is like coming towards him, and Batman's just running away going, "Screw this." And it's like, it's just, the image of that is hilarious to me. Like, of all the crap they put up with over the years, like at some point there would have to be a breaking point, you know. And he's just like, yeah, I love that. Anyway, well, we've been
all right. Yeah. So what was, so emotionally you don't think you had that kind of connection with?
You know, I probably have. It's just really difficult. Perhaps the girl in the tower in King's Quest. Girl in the tower. One of the first CD, like video game CDs that you could put inside of a player, and like it had that song on there.
It's like a real pop tune written for it. Yeah,
girl in the tower. I did connect a lot with those early adventure games. Tex Murphy, probably one of the ones that I wanted to be him. I wanted to talk like him. It's sort of like when I watched too much Mystery Science Theater and I started ripping on every commercial, and my parents were like, "You have to stop."
Right.
You know, like that's too much. I wanted to be Tex Murphy, and yeah, lots of good stuff out there. I will say we've probably been journeying on for about an hour now. We got to close the show down, but any thoughts before we do? Episode 100.
It's been a good 100 episodes, and we will continue on.
Time to die.
Time to die. Pull the lever, Crunk.
Well, I'm now 30, so it's time for me to be absorbed into those lights from Logan's Run. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember what it's called, but in that movie you get sucked up and killed when you're 30 years old. So whenever somebody tells me that they're like approaching 30, I'm like, well, time to die.
You should buy one of those little jewels for your palm.
Yeah, that starts blinking when it's time.
Exactly, and just be like, who's turned 30? Like, you should have had that be your cake. It's like a hand with the blinking light in the middle.
And no one would understand any of it. They'd be like,
come on, your friends would get it.
They might, yeah.
The people who listen to this podcast would get it.
There you go. Good faith in our listeners, and thank you, listeners. Like I said, help us out. We got porn bots following us, and we could definitely use some humans. Twitter.com/GUGRob and GUGBrad. Once again, just thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.
I'm going to go apply some hair mayonnaise.
I still don't know where that came from.